Amelia Earhart, The Sky Has No Limits. Imagine a time when people thought women were too weak to fly airplanes. Imagine being told that the sky was only for men, but refusing to believe it. Now imagine a brave woman who looked up at the endless blue sky and said, "That's where I belong." This is the inspiring story of Amelia Earhart, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, and one of the most famous aviators in history. Amelia broke barriers that people said could never be broken. She proved that courage, determination, and skill matter more than gender when it comes to achieving dreams. Amelia flew higher and farther than any woman before her, opening the skies for all the female pilots who came after. Her mysterious disappearance over the Pacific Ocean in 1937 made her a legend, but her real legacy is the message she left for all of us: that no dream is too big if you have the courage to pursue it. Amelia showed the world that the sky has no limits for those who dare to reach for the stars. Before we explore Amelia's extraordinary journey, please remember to subscribe to our channel, Beginner Bio Stories. We create simple English stories about famous people to help you learn English, while discovering the lives of courageous individuals who refused to accept limitations. Now, let's discover the amazing story of Amelia Earhart, the woman who conquered the skies and inspired generations to follow their dreams. Early life in Kansas. Amelia Mary Earhart was born on July 24, 1897, in Atchison, Kansas, a small town on the Missouri River. Her father, Samuel Edwin Earhart, was a lawyer who struggled to find steady work and often had problems with alcohol. Her mother, Amelia Amy Otis Earhart, came from a wealthy and prominent family in Atchison. The contrast between her parents' backgrounds would influence Amelia's childhood in many ways. Amelia had one younger sister, Grace Muriel, who was born 2 years after her. The two girls were very close and shared many adventures during their childhood. Unlike most girls of their time, Amelia and Muriel were encouraged to be active and independent. Their mother allowed them to wear pants instead of dresses when they played, which was quite unusual for girls in the early 1900s. Amelia's childhood was filled with adventure and exploration. She loved climbing trees, collecting insects, and exploring the outdoors. She was a tomboy who preferred action to quiet activities, like sewing or playing with dolls. Amelia kept a scrapbook of newspaper clippings about successful women in fields that were usually dominated by men, showing her early interest in breaking gender barriers. The Earhart family moved frequently during Amelia's childhood because of her father's work problems and drinking issues. They lived in various cities including Kansas City, Missouri, and St. Paul, Minnesota. This constant moving made it difficult for Amelia to form lasting friendships, but it also taught her to be adaptable and independent. Despite the family's financial struggles, Amelia's mother ensured that both girls received a good education. Amelia was an excellent student who loved reading and learning about new subjects. She was particularly interested in science and was curious about how things worked. Her teachers noticed that she asked more questions than most children and wasn't satisfied with simple answers. When Amelia was 10 years old, she saw her first airplane at the Iowa State Fair. At that time, airplanes were very new and exciting inventions that most people had never seen before. However, young Amelia was not immediately impressed by the flying machine. She later said it looked like a thing of rusty wire and wood, and was not particularly interesting to her at the time. Amelia's grandmother, Amelia Earhart, was a strong influence on her development. Grandmother Otis was an independent woman who believed that girls should have the same opportunities as boys. She encouraged Amelia to be brave, curious, and to never let anyone tell her that something was impossible because she was female. During her teenage years, Amelia attended several different schools due to her family's frequent moves. She graduated from Hyde Park High School in Chicago in 1916. Her classmates remembered her as intelligent, independent, and somewhat unconventional. She was not interested in typical teenage activities like dating or parties, preferring instead to focus on her studies and future plans. College years and finding her purpose. After graduating from high school, Amelia enrolled at Agant School, a prestigious finishing school for young women in Pennsylvania. The school was designed to prepare wealthy young ladies for marriage and social life, but Amelia had different ideas about her future. She was more interested in her studies than in learning social graces. During her time at Agant, Amelia was exposed to discussions about women's rights and social issues. The school encouraged intellectual curiosity and independent thinking, which suited Amelia's personality perfectly. She became interested in the women's suffrage movement and began to believe that women deserved equal opportunities in all areas of life. In 1917, during Christmas vacation, Amelia visited her sister Muriel in Toronto, Canada. There she saw wounded soldiers returning from World War I and was deeply moved by their suffering. This experience changed her perspective on life and made her want to do something meaningful to help others. Amelia decided to leave finishing school and enrolled in nursing courses to become a volunteer nurse. She worked at Spadina Military Hospital in Toronto, caring for wounded soldiers and pilots who had been injured in the war. This work was physically demanding and emotionally challenging, but it gave Amelia a sense of purpose and accomplishment. While working at the hospital, Amelia met many pilots and learned about their experiences flying military aircraft. She became fascinated by their stories of soaring through the clouds and seeing the world from above. The pilots told her about the freedom and excitement of flying, and for the first time, Amelia began to seriously consider aviation as more than just a curiosity. After the war ended, Amelia enrolled at Columbia University in New York to study medicine. She was one of the few women in her classes, and had to work hard to prove herself to professors and classmates who doubted women's ability to succeed in medicine. However, after a year of study, Amelia realized that medicine was not her true calling. In 1920, Amelia's parents asked her to come to California to help them reconcile their troubled marriage. Reluctantly, she left Columbia University and moved to Los Angeles. Although she was disappointed to interrupt her education, this move to California would prove to be the turning point that led her to discover her true passion. During this period of uncertainty about her future, Amelia took various jobs to support herself and help her family. She worked as a photographer, a truck driver, and even a social worker. These diverse experiences taught her practical skills and gave her confidence that she could succeed in any field she chose to enter. First flight and falling in love with aviation. On December 28, 1920, Amelia's life changed forever when her father took her to an airfield in Long Beach, California, for a demonstration flight. The pilot, Frank Hawks, offered to take Amelia up in his plane for a 10-minute flight. As soon as the airplane left the ground, Amelia knew she had found her calling. Years later, Amelia described that first flight experience. By the time I had got 200 or 300 feet off the ground, I knew I had to fly. The feeling of soaring above the earth, seeing the landscape spread out below, and experiencing the freedom of flight was unlike anything she had ever experienced. From that moment, Amelia was determined to learn to fly. However, learning to fly was expensive, and the Earhart family did not have much money. Flight lessons cost $1,000, which was equivalent to several $1,000s today. Amelia was determined to find a way to pay for lessons, so she took a job at the telephone company and saved every penny she could. Amelia also decided that she wanted to learn from a female instructor, believing that a woman would better understand the challenges she might face as a female pilot. She found Netta Snook, one of the first women to graduate from the Curtis School of Aviation. Netta became not only Amelia's flight instructor, but also her mentor and friend. Learning to fly in the 1920s was dangerous and challenging. Aircraft were much less reliable than modern planes, and safety equipment was minimal. Students learned through trial and error, and accidents were common. Despite these risks, Amelia was determined to master the skills of aviation. Amelia's first airplane was a bright yellow Kinner Airster biplane that she bought in 1921. She named the plane the Canary because of its color. The airplane cost $2,000, which Amelia paid for with money she had saved and borrowed from her family. Owning her own plane allowed Amelia to practice flying whenever she wanted, to fit in with other aviators, and to be taken seriously in the male-dominated world of aviation. Amelia began changing her appearance. She cut her long hair short and bought a leather flying jacket, which she slept in for several nights to make it look worn and experienced. She wanted to look like a serious pilot, not like a wealthy woman playing with a new hobby. Amelia quickly proved that she was a serious and skilled pilot. In 1922, just 2 years after her first flight, she set an altitude record for women by flying to 14,000 feet. This achievement brought her first taste of fame and recognition as a pilot. More importantly, it proved to herself and others that she had the skill and courage to succeed in aviation, breaking barriers and setting records. Throughout the 1920s, Amelia worked to establish herself as a professional aviator, while also holding various jobs to support herself financially. She moved back to the East Coast and worked as a social worker in Boston, while continuing to fly whenever possible. She also began writing about aviation and women's rights, expressing her belief that women could succeed in any field if given the opportunity. In 1928, Amelia received a phone call that would change her life forever. Captain Hilton H. Rayleigh called to ask if she would be interested in participating in a transatlantic flight. The plan was for Amelia to be the first woman to cross the Atlantic Ocean by airplane, though she would be a passenger rather than the pilot. The flight was organized by Amy Phipps Guest, a wealthy American woman who had originally planned to make the flight herself, but was persuaded by her family that it was too dangerous. Mrs. Guest chose Amelia for the flight because of her flying experience and because she looked similar to Charles Lindbergh, the famous male pilot who had recently flown solo across the Atlantic. On June 17, 1928, Amelia took off from Newfoundland, Canada, aboard a Fokker F-7 aircraft named Friendship. She was accompanied by pilot Wilmer Stultz and mechanic Louis Gordon. The flight took nearly 21 hours, and they landed in Wales, making Amelia the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. The transatlantic flight made Amelia instantly famous around the world. Newspapers called her Lady Lindy because of her resemblance to Charles Lindbergh and her aviation achievement. However, Amelia was not entirely satisfied with the flight because she had been only a passenger. She was determined to make the same journey as the pilot. Amelia used her newfound fame to promote aviation and women's rights. She wrote a book about her transatlantic experience called 20 HRS, 40 Men, and began giving lectures about flying and the importance of women pursuing careers in aviation and other fields traditionally dominated by men. In 1929, Amelia participated in the first Women's Air Derby, a cross-country air race from Santa Monica, California, to Cleveland, Ohio. The race was organized to showcase women's flying abilities and to encourage more women to enter aviation. 20 female pilots participated in the dangerous race, which the press mockingly called the Powder Puff Derby. Amelia finished third in the Women's Air Derby, but more importantly, she helped organize the 99s, an international organization of female pilots. The group was named after its 99 charter members and was dedicated to supporting women in aviation and promoting flying safety. Amelia served as the organization's first president. Marriage and partnership with George Putnam. During her rise to fame as an aviator, Amelia met George Palmer Putnam, a publisher and promoter who had helped organize her 1928 transatlantic flight. George was impressed by Amelia's intelligence, courage, and determination. He became her manager, helping to arrange speaking engagements, book deals, and endorsement contracts. George was married when he first met Amelia, but he was attracted to her independent spirit and adventurous nature. After his divorce, George began courting Amelia, though she was initially reluctant to consider marriage. She had seen how marriage had limited other women's careers and was concerned about losing her independence. George proposed to Amelia several times before she finally accepted. On February 7, 1931, they were married in a simple ceremony at George's home in Connecticut. Before the wedding, Amelia wrote George a letter that became famous for its unconventional approach to marriage vows. In the letter, Amelia wrote, "You must know again my reluctance to marry, my feeling that I shatter thereby chances in work which means most to me. I feel the move just now as foolish as anything I could do. I know there may be compensations, but have no heart to look ahead." She also asked for mutual freedom in the marriage and the right to end it if they were not happy. Despite her concerns about marriage, the partnership between Amelia and George proved to be beneficial for both of them. George was an excellent promoter who helped arrange sponsorships and publicity for Amelia's flights. He understood her ambitions and supported her aviation career rather than trying to limit it. George also helped Amelia secure financial backing for her flights, which were expensive and risky endeavors. He negotiated endorsement deals with companies that wanted to associate their products with Amelia's adventurous image. These partnerships provided the money needed for aircraft, fuel, equipment, and support crews. Amelia, in turn, brought excitement and adventure to George's life. She introduced him to the world of aviation and adventure that he found thrilling. Their marriage was a partnership between equals, with each supporting the other's career and interests. The couple's relationship was tested by Amelia's frequent absences for flights and speaking engagements. However, they maintained their commitment to each other and to Amelia's aviation career. George understood that Amelia's need to fly and explore was fundamental to who she was as a person. Solo across the Atlantic. Despite her success and fame from the 1928 transatlantic flight, Amelia remained dissatisfied with being known as a passenger rather than a pilot. She was determined to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, to prove that she had the skill and courage to make such a dangerous journey alone. Planning a solo transatlantic flight required careful preparation and significant financial resources. Amelia needed a reliable aircraft, navigation equipment, and support from experienced aviation professionals. George Putnam helped arrange sponsorships and publicity, while Amelia worked with aircraft designers and mechanics to prepare for the flight. Amelia chose a Lockheed Vega 5B aircraft for her solo attempt. The plane was modified with extra fuel tanks to extend its range for the long ocean crossing. She also had special navigation equipment installed and worked with experts to plan her route across the treacherous North Atlantic. On May 20, 1932, exactly 5 years after Charles Lindbergh's famous solo flight, Amelia took off from Harbor Grace, Newfoundland, bound for Paris. She planned to follow the same route as Lindbergh and to land at the same airfield in France. However, the flight did not go according to plan. During the flight, Amelia encountered several serious problems. Her altimeter failed, making it difficult to know her altitude. Ice began forming on the wings, which could have caused the plane to crash. She also developed a fuel leak and could smell gasoline in the cockpit, creating the danger of fire or explosion. Despite these mechanical problems and dangerous weather conditions, Amelia pressed on across the Atlantic. She flew for nearly 15 hours, fighting fatigue, equipment failures, and the constant stress of flying alone over the vast ocean. Her navigation skills and flying ability were put to the ultimate test. Instead of reaching Paris as planned, engine trouble and fuel concerns forced Amelia to land in a pasture in Northern Ireland. When local farmers came to investigate the strange aircraft in their field, Amelia asked, "Have I come far?" The farmers confirmed that she had indeed flown across the Atlantic Ocean and become the first woman to make the journey solo. The successful solo transatlantic flight made Amelia one of the most famous women in the world. She received honors and awards from governments and organizations around the globe. The United States Congress awarded her the Distinguished Flying Cross, making her the first woman to receive this military honor for aviation achievement. More importantly for Amelia, the solo flight proved that she was a skilled and courageous pilot in her own right, not just a famous passenger. She had demonstrated that women could achieve the same aviation feats as men if given the opportunity and support to try. Record-breaking flights and growing fame. Following her successful solo transatlantic flight, Amelia continued to set aviation records and break new ground for women in flying. Each new achievement brought her greater fame and provided platforms to advocate for women's rights and opportunities in aviation and other fields. In 1932, Amelia became the first woman to fly solo non-stop across the United States. She flew from Los Angeles to Newark, New Jersey, in 19 hours and 5 minutes, setting a new transcontinental speed record. This flight demonstrated her skill as a long-distance pilot and her ability to navigate across the vast American continent. Amelia also became the first person to fly solo from Hawaii to California, a dangerous overwater flight of more than 2,000 miles. The flight was particularly hazardous because pilots had to navigate entirely by instruments over the Pacific Ocean, with no landmarks to guide them. Many pilots had been killed attempting similar flights. The Hawaii to California flight took 18 hours and 16 minutes and made Amelia even more famous throughout the United States and internationally. The successful completion of this dangerous flight proved that she was one of the most skilled pilots in the world, regardless of gender. Between her record-breaking flights, Amelia continued to work as a writer, lecturer, and advocate for women's rights. She wrote articles for magazines and newspapers about aviation and women's issues. She also gave speeches around the country, encouraging young women to pursue careers in fields that had traditionally been closed to them. Amelia became a faculty member at Purdue University, where she counseled female students and promoted careers in aviation and engineering. The university purchased a Lockheed Electra aircraft for her to use in her research and record-setting attempts. This airplane would later play a crucial role in her final and most ambitious flight. Throughout this period, Amelia used her fame to challenge traditional ideas about women's capabilities and roles in society. She believed that women should have the same opportunities as men to pursue careers, adventures, and achievements. Her own success as a pilot provided powerful evidence that gender was not a barrier to excellence in any field. Amelia also worked to make aviation safer and more accessible to ordinary people. She believed that flying would become a common form of transportation and wanted to help develop the technology and infrastructure needed to make this vision a reality. Her participation in air races and demonstration flights helped promote public interest in aviation. The final flight around the world. By 1937, Amelia had achieved nearly every major aviation goal except one. She wanted to fly around the world at the equator, the longest route possible around the globe. This ambitious flight would cover approximately 29,000 miles and take her over some of the most remote and dangerous areas on Earth. The around-the-world flight was planned as both a personal challenge and a scientific mission. Amelia would test new navigation equipment and communication technology while gathering data about weather conditions and flying routes for future aviation development. Purdue University and several sponsors provided financial support for the expedition. Amelia's aircraft for the world flight was a twin-engine Lockheed Electra 10E, one of the most advanced planes available at the time. The aircraft was modified with extra fuel tanks, special navigation equipment, and radio communication systems. She planned to be accompanied by navigator Fred Noonan, an experienced aviator who specialized in overwater navigation. The first attempt at the world flight began on March 17, 1937, when Amelia and her crew took off from Oakland, California, headed west toward Hawaii. However, during takeoff from Luke Field in Hawaii 3 days later, the aircraft ground-looped and was severely damaged. The crash forced postponement of the flight, while the plane was repaired. Rather than giving up, Amelia decided to reverse her route and fly eastward around the world. On June 1, 1937, she and Fred Noonan took off from Miami, Florida, beginning what would become her final flight. They successfully completed the first legs of the journey, flying across South America, Africa, and Asia. By early July, Amelia and Fred had completed about 22,000 miles of their journey and had only 7,000 miles remaining. They had successfully navigated some of the most challenging portions of the route and were feeling confident about completing the historic flight. Their next major challenge was flying across the Pacific Ocean to California. On July 2, 1937, Amelia and Fred took off from Lee, New Guinea, for what should have been a 20-hour flight to Howland Island, a tiny speck of land in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The flight was one of the most difficult legs of the journey because Howland Island was only 6 miles long and 5 miles wide, making it extremely difficult to locate in the vast ocean. The plan was for Amelia to refuel at Howland Island and then continue to Hawaii and finally back to California. A U.S. Coast Guard ship, the Itasca, was stationed near Howland Island to provide radio communication and assistance. However, communication problems developed during the flight, and radio contact with Amelia became increasingly difficult. The mystery of the disappearance. As Amelia and Fred Noonan approached the area where Howland Island should have been located, they encountered serious navigation problems. Radio communications with the Coast Guard ship Itasca were poor due to technical difficulties and confusion about radio frequencies. Amelia reported that she could not locate the island and was running low on fuel. The last confirmed radio transmission from Amelia was received at 8:43 a.m. local time on July 2, 1937. She reported, "We are on the line 157 to 337, running on line north and south. We are running north and south." This message indicated that they were flying along a navigation line that should have led them to Howland Island, but they had not found the island. After that final transmission, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan vanished without a trace. Despite immediate search efforts by the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard, no sign of the aircraft or its occupants was found. The disappearance became one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history and captured the imagination of people around the world. The official search for Amelia and Fred lasted 16 days and covered 250,000 square miles of ocean. Ships and aircraft from the U.S. military searched the waters around Howland Island and nearby islands, but found no evidence of the missing plane. The search was eventually called off when it became clear that the aviators could not have survived for so long without rescue. Many theories have been proposed to explain what happened to Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan. The most widely accepted theory is that they ran out of fuel and crashed into the Pacific Ocean, somewhere near Howland Island. The aircraft would have sunk quickly in the deep ocean waters, leaving no trace for searchers to find. Other theories suggest that they might have reached a small island and survived for some time before dying of thirst, starvation, or injury. Some researchers have claimed to find evidence of Amelia's presence on various Pacific islands, but none of these claims have been definitively proven. More controversial theories have suggested that Amelia and Fred were captured by the Japanese military and held as prisoners, or that they assumed new identities and lived secretly for many years. However, there is no credible evidence to support these more dramatic theories about their fate. The mystery of Amelia Earhart's disappearance has inspired countless books, movies, documentaries, and expeditions searching for answers. Despite decades of investigation and numerous claimed discoveries, the exact fate of Amelia and Fred remains unknown. This enduring mystery has contributed to Amelia's legendary status and continued fascination with her story. Legacy of courage and inspiration. Although Amelia Earhart's life ended in mystery, her legacy as a pioneer, advocate, and inspiration continues to influence people around the world more than 85 years after her disappearance. She broke barriers for women in aviation and proved that courage and determination can overcome any obstacle. Amelia's aviation achievements were remarkable for any pilot, regardless of gender. She set numerous records, completed dangerous flights that many experienced male pilots had not attempted, and demonstrated exceptional skill and bravery throughout her career. Her technical competence and flying ability earned respect from aviation professionals who had initially doubted women's capabilities as pilots. More importantly, Amelia used her fame and achievements to advocate for women's rights and opportunities. She consistently argued that women should have the same chances as men to pursue careers, adventures, and achievements. Her own success provided powerful evidence that gender was not a barrier to excellence in any field. The 99's organization that Amelia helped found continues to support women in aviation today. The group has grown to include thousands of female pilots from around the world who work to promote aviation safety, education, and opportunities for women. Amelia's vision of women as equal participants in aviation has largely been realized. Amelia's writings and speeches continue to inspire people to pursue their dreams despite obstacles and criticism. Her philosophy that adventure is worthwhile in itself encourages others to take risks and explore new possibilities. Her belief that people should follow their passions rather than conform to others' expectations remains relevant today. The mystery of Amelia's disappearance has kept her story alive in popular culture and continues to fascinate new generations. Books, movies, and documentaries about her life introduce her achievements and philosophy to young people who might otherwise never learn about this pioneering aviator. Many schools, airports, and organizations have been named in Amelia's honor, ensuring that her memory and achievements are preserved for future generations. The Amelia Earhart Memorial Foundation provides scholarships for women pursuing careers in aviation and aerospace, continuing her work to open opportunities for others. Modern female pilots, astronauts, and explorers often cite Amelia as an inspiration for their own careers. Her example showed that women could succeed in dangerous, technical, and traditionally male-dominated fields if they had the courage to try and the determination to persist despite obstacles. Amelia Earhart's story reminds us that great achievements often require great risks, and that the most meaningful adventures are those that push us beyond our comfort zones. Her courage to attempt flights that others considered impossible, her determination to break barriers that others accepted as permanent, and her commitment to opening doors for others make her a true hero whose legacy transcends aviation. Today, when we see female pilots flying commercial aircraft, military jets, and spacecraft, we can trace their opportunities back to pioneers like Amelia Earhart, who proved that the sky truly has no limits for those who dare to reach for the stars. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the remarkable life of Amelia Earhart. Her story shows us that with courage and determination, we can break through any barrier and achieve dreams that others say are impossible. If you enjoyed learning about Amelia's inspiring life, please subscribe to our channel for more stories about extraordinary people who refused to accept limitations. Remember that you too have the power to soar beyond what others think is possible, and to open doors for those who will follow in your footsteps.